Guys, I apologize for leaving you. It was not by choice. I would have much rather been here. You know that. And I got updates from Lily about kind of, just watch the videos for the most part. Key things talked about here. Okay.
Remember this slide.
Yes. Okay. So Bolshevik Revolution, right? Yes. Bolshevik means the majority.
Yep.
Okay. And distrust between the Soviet Union and the West, yep, because we tried to help the Tsar, right, and so forth. Okay. So the seeds of the Cold War. I'm not emailing anybody. Okay. Okay. Then coming out of World War I, right, we had labor union issues, violence. I talked about union violence. Okay. And then you also had the Red Summer, red.
Oh, communism.
Red.
Communism.
Okay. Race riots. Okay. And I explained to you guys these race riots were different than what we've seen, like the Ferguson riots, okay, the Black Lives Matter riots, the Martin Luther King riot after his assassination. Those riots. These are different. These are white people going out attacking black people. And the most famous one I think I talked about was in Tulsa. Yeah. What happened in Tulsa, which was awful. That was a 100-year anniversary last year, okay, of what happened in Tulsa. Okay, so it's a little different than what we see in the later parts of the 20th century when it comes to race riots. So you got union violence, you got race riots, you got bomb scares. Okay, who's targeting Wall Street? Who's targeting J.P. Morgan? The fear is that these are Bolsheviks and communists. We have a genuine Red Scare on our hand. Mitchell Palmer, who's the Attorney General, starts rounding up people, deporting them without due process, sending them back to Europe, back to Russia, and so forth. Okay? So we get this xenophobia, fear of foreigners. This turns into some ugliness when it comes to the Klan. Okay? The KKK. And then I told you the story of Sacco and Vanzetti. Any of you guys see that movie Black Klansman?
No, but I want to.
Okay, I watched it last night, like this last 45 minutes of it last night.
Oh, okay.
Yeah, it's pretty interesting. Yeah, black guy, a cop, yeah, and a Jewish guy.
Yeah. He's got a great afro, doesn't he?
Yeah, it's pretty good. He's got a great afro.
It does. It's got a very good afro.
Now, guys, I tell this story about Sacco and Vanzetti that are seen as victims of xenophobia, when in reality they were guilty of murder. Yeah. But it turned into a cause célèbre. We see this today, where the media takes something and runs with it, whether it may be true or it may not be true. Like, I don't know if I talked about this. Hands up, don't shoot is based on a lie. Grand jury testimony of witnesses that saw Officer Wilson shoot Michael Brown said he did not put his hands up. He assaulted the police officer, went for his gun, and the police officer shot him. Okay, the police officer was found not guilty. Okay, and there were black witnesses to this. Okay, one of his friends said, he put his hands up, said, "Hands, don't shoot. My hands are up." That didn't happen, but the media ran with it. Okay, it's based on a lie. This is based on a lie. These two guys were guilty. Okay, so you got to be careful about, trust in the media is at all-time lows, guys. Right now, I mean, it's horrible. Okay, our journalists in this country need to wake up to the fact that they live in a bubble in New York City. Okay, and that people out here in the boondocks think differently than they do. Okay, and when you pound people with things that they don't believe in, they're going to reject you. And that's happening to our media. Nobody takes them seriously. And that's dangerous for our country. We need to be able to trust our media. Where do you go to get accurate information that you can trust about your health? About COVID? The science keeps changing. Has the science changed on this? Like every 3 weeks, it's something different. Okay? So when you mandate and you criticize people, and they're like, well, wait a second, you told us this. Now you're telling us something different. Just be honest. Say, look, we don't know for sure. This is what we think is going to be best for people. That comes off a lot better than being, bludgeoned. Okay. Prohibition, talked about that, right? Okay, and how stupid that was. Women's right to vote. And women are going to elect this guy. The first president that women will help elect, Warren G. Harding. Okay? Oh, he's dignified. He looks like the president. Okay? He's from Ohio. Do you know which state of the 50 states has produced the most presidents? Ohio. Yeah. Okay.
It's like he was alluding to it.
All right. So now we're not going to do this with every president, guys, but what we are going to do is break down his cabinet. Now, here's the thing. Harding's administration, by historians, is known as one of the most corrupt administrations in American history. Okay? That's why we're talking about it. Okay? He is from Ohio, and his group of friends. Now, look, when you get elected president, you bring with you to Washington, D.C., the people that helped you get there, the people you trust, the ones that helped you become governor, or the ones that helped you become a member of Congress. Those people, you bring them with you from your state. Okay? This group will be known as the Ohio Gang. Okay? Now, some wise appointments. Let's talk about Herbert Hoover. Herbert Hoover will go on to become president. He'll be the Secretary of Commerce. Okay? Herbert Hoover is an engineer. Okay? They called Herbert Hoover, the great engineer. We've only had 2 presidents that were engineers. Hoover,
William Howard Taft.
Jimmy Carter, the peanut farmer.
He's a farmer.
Now, more about Hoover later. He's a very successful engineer, owns a mining company, self-made man. Okay? Charles Evan Hughes had good experience as Secretary of State, deal with diplomacy, right? And he had helped with peace agreements between Japan and Russia to end the Russo-Japanese War. So he's got some good background here. Wise guy. Okay? And then Andrew Mellon with 2 L's. You ever heard of a university called Carnegie Mellon? It's a very prestigious university.
Is this where we get the crazy melon?
Huh? Mellonhead? No, I don't think so. Mellon will be the Secretary of Treasury. But what's interesting about Mellon, we're going to be talking about it. Because Mellon is the Treasury Secretary for Harding, Coolidge, and Hoover for 3 different presidents. That is very rare. Usually, guys, you see a cabinet person serve 1 term. So, like if Biden were to be reelected in 2024, many of his cabinet members would resign and he would appoint new ones for the 2nd term. But to have somebody serve in 3 different administrations is rare. When Obama was elected, he kept on Robert Gates as the Secretary of Defense, who was Bush's Secretary of Defense, because we were in 2 wars. And he kept Gates, who, by the way, Secretary of State of Defense, Gates, is from Wichita. Went to East High. Okay? He was the president of Texas A&M University. And when we got attacked on 9/11, Bush asked him after Rumsfeld resigned to leave that cush job, which, guys, being the president of a large university like that is a sweet gig, okay? You make lots of money and you don't have to do that much, okay? He gave up that job to go into public service as Secretary of Defense and then stayed under Obama for a couple of years, okay? So it's pretty rare. So we'll be talking about Mellon for a while. Now, this is what defines Harding's presidency, or these disastrous appointments, okay? Albert Fall. This guy, he went to jail. Now, you guys that are in my government class, talking about oil leases on federal lands, okay? Well, that's the job of the Secretary of the Interior. They control federal lands. They don't design the White House, okay? So, national forest, federal lands, national parks, all under the purview of the Secretary of the Interior, okay? Well, Albert Fall was giving leases to oil companies to look for oil on federal lands. But he wasn't telling anybody. He was taking the money himself. He was getting kickbacks from the oil company.
Nice.
Yeah, he got caught.
He didn't launder it.
He didn't launder it. He went to jail. Now, your parents ever tell you, be careful who you're hanging out with, who your friends are? Huh? Nathan? You got any friends that are like, your parents would be like, if my parents knew what this kid was actually like, they'd be like, I don't think I want my son.
I'm that kid.
Yeah, Andrew is that kid. First-hand experience.
Now, how does Albert Fall make Warren G. Harding look?
Terrible.
It makes Harding look bad. Okay? Now, guys, Harry Daugherty gets appointed Attorney General by Harding. Now, Harry Daugherty is not qualified to be the Attorney General of the United States. He managed Harding's campaign. Okay? And so Daugherty's going to get himself in all kinds of trouble and will actually attempt to commit suicide. How does that make Harding look?
Compassionate.
Let me give you another famous Attorney General appointment.
Joyful.
When John F. Kennedy, JFK, was elected, who did he choose as his Attorney General?
Probably one of the presidents.
His younger brother.
Bobby.
JFK was the youngest president ever elected, and then he takes his younger brother and makes him Attorney General.
What's the problem with that?
It's called nepotism.
No. Was he qualified?
Was he? That's what they asked JFK. And you know what JFK said? He said, I see nothing wrong with giving my younger brother a little bit of legal experience before he goes out to practice law.
Wait, the Attorney
Everybody
General.
laughed.
Wait, hold on. The Attorney General of the United States is just experience.
So everybody laughed, and the issue went away. And Bobby Kennedy turned out to be a pretty tough AG. And in fact, he was so tough, it might have got his brother killed, depending on which conspiracy theory you believe in.
And what conspiracy theory?
Because he went after the mob. He went after the mafia.
They got him killed too.
Well, that was that dude, Sirhan, who just came up for parole.
Why do assassins always have cool names?
You think Saran
John Wilkes.
Sounds like honestly, Lee Harvey Oswald.
Those are not really
The dude that killed Archduke Ferdinand.
What was his name?
I don't remember. The dude that killed McKinley. His name was pretty cool too.
Oh, Gabriel Prince. Yep. And then
Pretty cool.
what was?
The dude that-
It was a really weird name.
Okay. Okay, now, so this makes Harding look incompetent, okay? His friends are killing him, okay? Literally. So this group becomes known as the Ohio Gang. And this is during Prohibition. So yeah, they spend more time playing cards, drinking, and so forth, hanging out in the White House, than planning national policy, use their offices to enrich themselves, make Harding look incompetent, and would help lead to his death. So Harding, he's sick. He's got a bad cold. He's out trying to deflect all these scandals. He's traveling out on the west coast of the United States, okay? And he's up in Northern California. He's had a long day. Basically, guys, he's got walking pneumonia. And he's overexerting himself trying to deflect these scandals. He goes up a big flight of stairs at the hotel he's staying at, collapses on the bed, and dies. The autopsy showed that he had an enlarged heart and that the walking pneumonia just was too much for his body to handle. Okay? So you can kind of attribute this to the scandals created by his friends. Okay? Now, Harding's body will be placed in a railroad car and transported back across the United States. Americans all across the rail lines were told when he was passing through, and they lined the rails across America, paying their last respect to the President of the United States. Now, does anybody know who his vice president was?
Calvin Coolidge.
Calvin Coolidge. Now remember, when the Boston police went on strike, Coolidge was the governor of Massachusetts. He called out the National Guard to protect people and was seen as kind of a hero for doing that. He made a name for himself, and Harding said, hey, run for president as my running mate. And so Coolidge, when Harding dies, is on the family farm in Massachusetts. Okay? Now, guys, we didn't have rural electrification in this country until the 1940s. So if you're out on a rural farm somewhere in 1928, or this would be 1926, no. 24, Harding dies, I think. 23, 24. Coolidge is on the family farm. They don't have electricity. Okay? It's just him and his dad. His mom's passed away. So he's in the house at the farm, and there's a knock on the door in the middle of the night. And it's a telegraph operator saying, President Coolidge, President Harding has died. You need to go to Washington, D.C. in the morning. So they go to bed and like, oh man, I guess I'm going to be the president. Well, about an hour later, there's a knock on the door again. The same telegraph guy. He's like, you need to be sworn in as president. We don't have a president. So you got to have a judge or a notary. You guys know what a notary is?
It's a witness.
Like a witness. Well, you got somebody that's official though. So a justice of the peace, a judge, a notary. Well, guess who's a notary? Coolidge's dad. Okay? But you need a witness. Telegraph guy. So under candlelight on a family Bible, Calvin Coolidge is sworn in as President of the United States by his father. The witness is the telegraph delivery.
That's pretty cool.
That's how he became president. Oh, I'm sure it's probably in the Smithsonian or something.
That's pretty cool.
Yeah, it's a good story. Okay. Now we're not done with Harding yet.
No, he is dead.
He will be dead soon. Okay. But we got to talk about more with Harding. Okay. Now we're going to go across the pond here for a minute. Across the pond. Across the Atlantic. Okay. That's what the British call it. The British call it the pond. Okay.
I said I love that.
Now, guys, we got to do some foreign policy here. Now, remember, we talked about World War I and how awful it was. Yes? Yeah. Left a really bad taste in people's mouth. And they didn't want to see this again. So we're going to see a series of pacts that are going to try and prevent war from happening again. This pact is what's called a disarmament treaty. To disarm, to reduce the number of weapons that we have, so we'll be less likely to go to war with one another. Follow me? This will be a naval agreement. The five-power treaty between the U.S., Great Britain, France, Italy, and Japan is this. We're going to limit the number of Navy ships, capital ships over 10,000 pounds of displacement. Now, you guys know how you measure, that's how you measure the size of a ship, is by how much water it displaces. Like when you get in the bathtub, the water rises. Okay, the more you weigh, the more the water's going to come up. Tons, yeah, tons. Yeah. Now, they call this a successful disarmament treaty because we did limit the size of our navies. Okay? Now, what I'm going to tell you guys is this is a piece of paper. this 5-power treaty. That's it. Now, if somebody violates this treaty, there's nothing in the treaty that says the other 4 nations are going to go to war with the one that violates the treaty to enforce it. So if one of these nations ignores the treaty, what do the others do?
You ignored the treaty.
The same thing that the other country did.
Gang up on them.
Yeah, we're not going to want to go to war. We're trying to prevent war to begin with. We don't want conflict. So what good is this piece of paper? Because one of these nations is going to be the first to violate. Now you can look at those. We got a Japan out there. We got anybody else think one of these other
It was
countries?
Great Britain.
Britain?
Oh,
Who
it was
else?
us. It was us.
Us? The one least likely that you think would violate this. The French. The French are going to be the first to violate this. You know why the French violate this? Because this dude on their southern border comes to power named Benito Mussolini comes to power in Italy. And you know what Mussolini starts talking about? A new Roman Empire. Now, you tell me, history students, was France once part of the Roman Empire?
Yes.
Yes.
So was
Yes.
Britain.
So the French are like this crazy fascist guy. He calls himself a fascist. Okay, wants a new Roman Empire. And what are we doing? We're shrinking the size of our navy. Maybe we shouldn't be doing that. And so the French say, you know what? We're not going to do that anymore. We're going to build our navy stronger.
Yes.
So,
Fascismo.
is it a successful disarmament treaty? Did it provide for a decade of peace? You know what provided for a decade of peace?
Not shooting each other.
World War I provided a decade of peace.
That was it. Only a decade.
Nobody wanted to do that again. You understand, right?
Turned around and did it worse.
Huh?
You turned around and did it worse.
Yes. Oh, we're going to make some mistakes here. But here's the thing, guys. I need you to understand. Although this may make you feel warm and fuzzy, that you're doing something to prevent war, it is just a piece of paper. Okay? And if you don't have the backbone to enforce these types of treaties, then their value actually can be worse than good. Say that very well.
I understand it. We're slow there.
Been in a bedroom.
I was like waiting for the great thing. And then you said good.
So, another way of putting it would be to say that this could have done more harm than good. Okay. Thank you. Now, this isn't going to be the last one we talk about. There's the 9-power treaty, the 5-power treaty. In a couple days, we'll talk about something called the Kellogg-Briand Pact. Okay. Now, quick poll: how many of you guys are marching? Okay, guys, I will post. You will have plenty of time on the bus to watch these videos. It's a tradition. If you go back on my YouTube channel 4 or 5 years, this is where I started recording these videos, was for March for Life. Okay, and then I got good at it.
It says it and I forgot to didn't turn the audio on.
They get worse. Multiple times.
Yeah, my speaker system isn't great here. Okay. Now, like I said, guys, the only way to enforce this is conflict, and conflict is what we're trying to avoid in the first place. Now, every now and then we got to check in with Japan, right? Because we know what's going to happen on December 7th, 1941, right? That's like down the road. We're looking at that, okay? What's going on with Japan? Now, remember our immigration policies, where we limited immigration from certain countries and banned immigration from others, like all Asian countries. Yes?
Great choice.
What kind of message are we saying to the Japanese when we say, we don't want your people to come here? Now, guys, this is stereotyping, but I don't care.
Great practice.
There is something in Asian cultures. Have you ever heard of the term saving face?
Yeah.
Okay, like
Don't actually-
honor,
Yeah.
honor, the honor of your family, the honor of, of a human being. And what we do with this immigration policy with Japan is dishonorable to them. Okay, and it doesn't bode well for our relations with them. Now, we are trading partners with the Japanese throughout this time period. The biggest export that the United States has to Japan throughout the decade of the 20s and 30s is oil. Okay, we produce it, we sell it to the Japanese. Okay, and that is good for us. All right, it's good for them, it's good for us. Trade. Okay, so we've got to check in with them. Our relations with them are not so good. We have insulted them. Back across the pond. Time to get up.
Very yeah.
Okay.
Oh, we're back.
Now, back to Harding. He's still alive. Now, guys, this looks like a Republican. It smells like a Republican. Okay? You've got, now this is 1920s Republican. Higher tariffs, lower taxes, less government spending, and then aid to disabled soldiers and farmers. Okay? This is a 4-point Harding domestic program. We're going to break down each one of these because there's major implications with some of these policies. Okay? We're going to learn about tariffs. We're going to learn about taxes. We're going to learn about aid to World War I vets. Okay? So we'll break down each one of these. Now, as we move into the, further into the 20th century here, our government is starting to do more than it had in the past. Wilson was a progressive, President Wilson, okay? And progressives believe that the answer to your problems is government. Government's going to help solve your problems, okay? Now you get a Republican in there, and they're like, no, that's not really how we roll, okay? So they're going to try and cut back on what there is. Now, the government in 1924 is nothing like it looks like today. You understand? Okay. Our whole system is going to change under Roosevelt during the Depression and the New Deal, okay, which we will go into great detail about that. Okay. So these next couple of lines, you do not need to know for the test, okay, but I do want to include them just in my discussion briefly. I took this off the test because everybody missed it. Because when you start talking about budgets and stuff like that, people start falling asleep. Now, guys, you live in a dysfunctional time period as far as it comes with Congress, okay, right now. It's dysfunctional. Our Congress is. And it has been for about 20 years. They don't function the way they were supposed to when it comes to budgets, okay? But prior to the Harding administration, if they wanted to build a ship, they passed a bill to build that ship. They didn't have a defense budget over 10 years. Follow me? So they would pass line item after line item after line item. They would pass each individual spending bill, which is inefficient. Okay?
Oh, wait, so they would just be like, we need 10,000 rifles.
Yeah.
Passed it.
Yep, we got to pass, yeah.
Oh.
Inefficient. So they created the Bureau of Budget. Oh, and this is where we get waste stuff. You understand? If you got to vote on every spending bill, you spend less. You understand? I mean, like, whoa, hold up. Didn't we just spend, wait, we just spent that. We just spent that. No, let's just throw it all into one big budget. And put your wish list in there, okay? And then not only for this year, but we'll pass a budget for the farmers and for the military for 10 years. Okay? So for the first time, people can see in one document the entire budget. Now, as I said, we're in a dysfunctional period right now. Our Congress has not passed a national budget. And since I think, 2007. Yeah, they just passed expenditures, like continuing resolutions to fund the government. You hear about this, remember when the government was gonna shut down?
Yeah.
Well, then they passed a measure to spend this much more money, okay? They didn't actually pass a budget. They haven't done that in a long time. Yes, it's dysfunction.
I thought it just.
You do, but they haven't passed one. They come up with a budget, yeah. But they haven't passed the entire budget in a long time.
So if they were to pass a budget, would we stop spending so much money or?
It would maybe control things a little bit better. At least you know where things would.
So if they,
We're going.
if they don't pass it, do they use it less and not use the budget?
Does it
I
matter
don't
if
know,
we
they
have a
just
budget or not?
spend. No, like, okay, $1.3 trillion infrastructure bill. Right? That's not part of a budget. That's just a 1.3, and then Biden gets to figure out where the money goes. Yeah, they did the same thing under Obama.
Budget doesn't get passed. They just write it and then they disregard
They
it.
just.
They're back to passing individual bills.
I don't like how it's like, there's the budget.
But it worked before, but it doesn't work now.
Yeah. Oh, yeah. Is it working? You tell me.
Like,
Okay.
when they passed it individually, it should have helped them save money, but now we're doing it and, we just spent a lot of.
Oh, yeah. I heard Biden say, read this, that, he wants to start sending out those $1,500 checks again.
Wait, can you
No.
sell
Yeah.
it like 18?
No, that just means inflation's gonna go up.
I think I'm just taking the money.
No, it's not free money.
They keep sending me a check. My wife and I, we get like these $166 checks. I know you're getting, Johnson, your parents are getting. They're the
My
child
parents
tax
get a
credits.
lot.
Does that count even?
They're-
My parents have been getting that for a long time.
No,
So I
it has
have
to
them
be,
to
it
send
has
out
to be independent.
the money.
Well, you can
just
claim an
those-
18-year-old as a dependent.
Yeah, most of your family's older. Yeah. You
My
ones
parents
with
don't
younger
get it.
siblings and you got a bunch of kids at the house, you're getting checks for those kids.
Oh, really?
Yeah, I get $166 like every quarter for Lily now.
My parents get paid to have.
That's-
I'm like, why are they sending us
They
money?
get paid to be parents.
We don't have this money.
You have to pay back on, like, in your tax.
Oh yeah, I'm paying for it. Actually, your kids are paying for it.
You didn't make this.
Nice.
No, our grandkids.
Yeah, screw, yeah, I'm not paying for it.
Moving to Mars. I'm
We're
moving to
just
Mars.
passing it on to the next generation. Leaving things in a better off situation than when we got here. Okay, now, GAO, General Accounting Office, okay? This was created, still around today. This is to make sure that the government, the money that they're spending is done so legally, and they recommend economies to spend it wisely. How they doing? Lily, are you old enough to remember Mimi and Omar? Okay.
They yelled at me because we're having a snowball fight in Newport.
Mimi was from France and Omar was from Lebanon, and they were our neighbors. Sweet, sweet people. And,
No, they yelled at me.
no, they were sweet.
All the
Omar used to
time.
call me the mayor, Whispering Brook, which I really appreciate. Okay.
Master, right?
Their son, Tariq, went to Wichita State and studied international business, and now works for the General Accounting Office in Chicago. Okay, so they ended up moving to Chicago to be with their son, Mimi and Omar. Miss those guys, yeah. Sweet people.
At least traumatized.
Okay, tariffs. Lily.
Don't bring it up. I got it right on the Bible.
Yeah.
Oh, yeah.
But
She
you did
fixed
get
herself.
Okay, you're 1 for 2 then.
It's an F.
I had the highest grade in this class, in that class, so
Not by much.
kind of seemed.
Oh, that seems a little fishy.
Yeah, that's a
It's called hearing it for your whole life.
What did you have?
Nepotism. Okay.
Andrew freaked me out.
All right, guys. All right, a tax on imports. Okay, now, this is called protectionism when you do tariffs. What you're trying to do is protect American industry, American farmers in this case, from foreign competition. Now those then Canadians, they figured out how to grow what's called winter wheat, right? Up in these cold weather climates. Now there's not a lot of Canadians, so they have a lot of land. They can grow a lot of food that they're not going to eat. So they're going to have all this leftover wheat, and they're going to dump it on American markets. What's going to happen to the price of wheat in the United States? It's going to go down. So if you're an American farmer, you're having to compete against this cheap Canadian wheat. It's making it harder for you to make a living. In the 1970s, the Japanese did this with cars. Little bitty rice burners, we call it. Okay?
Wow, you're shit racist.
Guys, you could drive these little Toyotas for like 250,000 miles, and they got great gas mileage. While we're in the middle of an oil embargo, these Japanese cars were selling like hotcakes, while Detroit is building tanks. Big Lincoln Continentals and Cadillacs that are like 23 feet long. Okay, I own one. And then they would break down. You know what I mean? So, guys, this foreign trade, we're going to try and help Americans out with tariffs, okay? So a 28% tariff on farm products, and then Fort McCumber Act gives industrialists protection that they need. Now, guys, back in this day, we were producing. A lot of industry when it came to manufacturing. All those new things we were building, toasters, vacuum cleaners, washing machines, radios, automobiles. I mean, we were a manufacturing behemoth. But Europe caught on, and they started manufacturing, and they're trying to sell stuff here because we have a lot of people here, okay? And so that foreign competition had to be challenged. Now, United States, people of this country consume more per capita than any other group of people in the world. Yes? We are consumers. Now, how many guys are wearing Sperry's right now? Hey, yeah. Sperry's.
He's got some fun.
Eastland.
Yeah, hey, dudes.
Why? They're so comfortable. Dude.
No, that's the United States.
I knew when someone put up the projector, I was like, oh.
That's Great Britain. Atlantic.
Where's
Everybody
Ireland?
knows where we are.
Where's Ireland?
Across the pond.
All right.
What happened to Florida?
Where's
For the sake of argument, Sperry's are made in London.
Are they?
No, they're not. Okay? Now, how much did you pay for your Sperry's?
60.
90, 60,
7
73, 60. All right. Guys, Sperry's selling a boatload of shoes in America. Yes? Let's say on average $75 a pair. Okay? These are casual dress shoes, yes? Now, let's say there's an American company out here in Nebraska
It's like, what?
called New Balance. Now, what kind of shoes does New Balance make? Sneakers, casual, tennis shoes, walking, running shoes. Yeah. But New Balance is an American company, let's say, and they make shoes in Nebraska, and they want to get into the casual dress shoe market. They want to compete with Sperry. But in order to make a good product, good leather, and pay American labor costs, they cannot sell these shoes, make them and sell them for less than $80 a pair. So, in order to help New Balance out, we're going to put a tariff on Sperry's coming in. We're gonna raise these to $90 a pair. Now, some of you just got priced out of the Sperry market. You're gonna look elsewhere. An alternative is an American-made product right here at home. What happens to the sale of Sperry's in the United States? So what happens at the factory here in London?
Money.
They say, whoa, man, we're not selling as many shoes. We need to slow down production, yes? So what do they got to do? They got to lay some people off, cut wages.
I thought we just make a surplus.
Slow down. Now, there's a company out here in Silicon Valley called Dell. And Dell makes what? And I don't know if you knew this or not, but people in London love Dell computers. But because of the slowdown at the Sperry factory, people have less money to buy Dell computers. So what happens at Dell?
They lay off.
They lay people off, and you have fewer people with money to buy New Balance shoes or Sperry shoes. You see the impact of tariffs on free trade and on economies. Now, on the easy answer on the test question, the easy answer is we put tariff on European goods and they retaliate with tariffs on our goods. That's the easy answer. It'll get you 2 out of 3.
Do you have to draw the map for the extra point?
The one that'll give you 4 out of 4. I changed my mind. Is this. As a consumer-driven economy, when we put tariffs on foreign goods, those countries do not make enough money to buy our goods. Like me to repeat that?
Yes, I would, actually.
It's being recorded.
That's a consumer-driven economy.
We're staring at them.
Tariff on foreign goods.
Okay, so when the United States, which is a consumer-driven economy, puts tariffs on foreign products, those foreign countries make less money and don't have money to buy our products. So our exports will suffer because of our tariffs on them. And then they retaliate with tariffs on our products. Now, guys, this is going to be one of the causes of the Great Depression because we're not done with these tariffs. We're going to double and triple down on these tariffs, especially once the economy starts to slow down. Okay? And I'll get into that. And then we're going to talk about Donald Trump because when he became president, he wanted to put tariffs on Chinese goods. Okay? So we're going to talk about that tomorrow. We'll start with that. Marchers, pay attention. Watch these videos while you're on the road. Okay? They won't be from an hour. They won't be from a year ago. They'll be from today.
You guys just check in.
I have